And my mom taught me this Catholic thing that every new church you go in, you say six Hail Marys, six Our Fathers, and six Glory Bees, and you get three wishes. So, I'm doing the way I was trained. And without the moment I asked to be healed, I heard a voice without question, you are already healed. Well, that was great, but now what do I do with that? And then it just kept growing from there that I'm healed. This is my mission. My mission is to live powerfully exactly the way I am and
Mm.
exactly the way I'm not.
Welcome to Landmark Difference Makers, where we interview people making a remarkable difference around the world. Get ready to be inspired. Let's jump in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Landmark Difference Makers. Today, we're going to be interviewing Michael Houlihan, who really is a living example of resilience, authenticity, and contribution. He grew up on a Missouri farm and learned early the values of hard work, integrity, and caring for others. And over the years, he's worn many hats: community leader, horseman, storyteller, and now the author of an inspiring memoir, It's All About the Boots. His journey takes us from the open fields of his childhood to the boardrooms and civic leadership, and through profound health challenges that became unexpected pathways to gratitude and growth. Really, Mike's story is one of turning obstacles into opportunities and seeing every conversation as a chance to make a difference. And it's really a value that resonates deeply within the Landmark community. And I can speak from personal experience that Mike really does embody that. Mike, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Seamus. It is such a privilege.
Well, uh, I want to just start out with, you have a childhood experience of growing up on a farm, and not many people have that anymore. There's a very small percentage of people that have that experience. But how would you say that has shaped you?
Well, that is such an easy question to answer because it when one grows up on the farm, very sensitive to the seasons. And there's a season to plant, a season to prune, a season to harvest. And I grew up on a nursery, which was one of our four farms of Houlihan Nursery Company. And my dad happened to be passionate about horses, and lucky for me that he was because I was I was hooked at a very young age. I wrote another book called Letters from the Trail, where I see every photograph from the time I was a year old. I had boots on and I was sitting on the back of a horse. But the thing that influenced me most is that animals don't get taken care of unless I take care of them. Stalls don't get mucked unless I muck them. Horses don't get cleaned unless I clean them. And I knew that that was a big part of my job. And I was able to take that into being a father and being a businessman. I knew that there were only certain things that got done because I did them, and that was it.
Now, you've shared a lot about your experiences growing up on a farm in your memoir, which I had a chance to um, experience. And um, one of the things that I'm left wondering is how you chose the title of your book. It's all about the boots.
That's really great. So I would after I got separated, I was invited to a friend's house as a single guy. And I absolutely dreaded the thought of getting sitting next to some woman that was talking 100 miles an hour and really, would ask me questions, but really didn't want to hear the answers, or some guy that was in some depressed state. And by the way, this is all made up as a newly separated guy who was waiting to get divorced. Her house was gorgeous. We went into her room, her living room, because I didn't want to go to the kitchen wherever the people were. And I sat down next to the fireplace. And when the music stopped, Anne, who was the hostess, came in and played Garth Brooks. And Garth Brooks was Blame It All on my boots. Excuse me, Blame It All on My Roots when I showed up in boots and ruined her black tie affair. And I realized that it was my identity and my comfort as a human being. And so I moved into a new house, and my children called this my cowboy stage, where first Thanksgiving I went and dug my boots out of the basement and put my boots on, my jeans on. And when I decorated my first bedroom, it had my chaps, my dad's chaps, my lariat, my my hat, and my boots and my dad's boots down on the floor below the rack. So it was a symbol of really getting myself back.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. One of the things that a lot of people may not know about you is that um, your life changed course when you began to have uh, an illness that affected the functioning of your legs. Can you tell us a little bit about that illness and
Mhm.
how it came into your life?
Well, it is a degenerative nerve condition, and it's called hereditary spastic paraplegia. And I got it after many years of research and looking through doctors that became from a recessive gene that both my mom and my dad had. I'm the only one in my family that has it, and unfortunately, my son now has it. But it started showing up very young in my life, and it showed up as a spasticity or a stiffness. And when my legs got tired, not, they were not no longer smooth. They would kind of jerk. And I don't know if said this, but um, went to a military high school, and there was one, and we had inspection two days a week, where we had to get there at 7 o'clock. And as a freshman, my dad dropped me off and with my shine shoes and shine brass, and I would go stand in inspection. And then when I got out of the car, my dad noticed there was something with the way I was walking. And that night he said, "So you know, are you okay? Your feet okay?" I said, "Yeah, why? Why do you ask?" And he said, you were kind of limping or moving differently." And then that spring I ran track, and my track coach said to me, uh, "Houlihan, if you could smooth out your gait, you can improve your time." And that was really the beginning. Now, I didn't, because it's inside me and other people are observing it, I'm living with it and growing with it. And it was kind of an irritation and something I was afraid of. And before the Landmark Forum, my goal in life was to get rid of this thing. So I was trying everything, chiropractors and not that there's anything wrong with chiropractors, but healers. And I was trying different forms of medications and injections and that type of thing. And even after I got the message when I went to Lourdes, which I can talk about if you'd like, um, I
And you
would
say you
still,
lords in France.
yeah, Lourdes in France. Um, I that came during I but let me finish my thought, and that is that I would even still after that, if someone said we've got something that's proven it would help you walk better, because at that time I knew that the future wasn't going to be good. I was walking with canes. As a matter of fact, Seamus, I think when I met you, I was walking with canes or ski poles, one of the two. But the degeneration just never stopped. And I remember sitting watching. I used to have Sundays where I would shine all the shoes for the kids and my shoes for about a week. And I was watching a game and I was getting up to um, to take the kids' shoes to their rooms. And I realized, wow, this is not going away. And it was frightening to me. I mean, I
Mm.
was scared to death thinking, what could life be like if I couldn't walk, if I couldn't run, if I couldn't do all the things that I was doing? And so my single focus at that time, this was way before the Landmark Forum, it was, I got to get rid of this thing in order to have a good life, in order to be successful, in order to have money, in order to, have all the things in life that I wanted to have. I had to get rid of it.
The context is decisive, as they say.
It is. Yeah,
But it sounds like the context was this shouldn't be this way.
it was definitely that way. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that it obviously not obviously, but you can tell that it came in degrees over time. When did you realize that it really was something that you were going to have to deal with?
Well, I had I was having this kind of limping or dragging of my toes, wearing them out. And I have a classmate of mine from high school who's an orthopedic surgeon, and I had some appointments with some potential customers, maybe 4 or 5 miles from his office. And when I went to see him, um, when he first told me to come out, and I told him that what was going on with me, and he checked me out, and he said, "So this doesn't appear like it's a pinched nerve, but I want you to go see this neurologist." And it was I think it was before Christmas, excuse me, before Thanksgiving. And so the day before Thanksgiving, he took me as his last appointment that day. And he tested me, and testing is checks my eyes, my hand-eye coordination, pinpricks, and that type of thing. And he said, so you either have a degenerative nerve condition or you have a brain tumor. And he said, you need to go get an MRI to find that out. And so I didn't want to tell anybody at that point because if I had a brain tumor, then everyone's going to know and it's going to be over. And so I had to wait until after I got the MRI, which was about several weeks later after Christmas. And then I had to deal with it. You have a degenerative nerve condition. It doesn't look like it's MS. It doesn't look like it's ALS, but it is in the realm of something called primary lateral sclerosis, which is in the same family as Lou Gehrig's disease. And my brother, at age 49, died of ALS. And so I had to deal with, what do I do about this? And lucky for me, um, well, not lucky for me at the time. So my wife at the time really found it difficult to deal with me having this, and it was so consuming that I really didn't treat her the way she should be treated. And my business was failing, my health was failing, and my marriage was failing all at the same time. And after she left, a friend um, said to me that there is this program called the Landmark Forum, and it's really helpful for people when they are in transition, dealing with something life altering or changing. And so I went, and it was, you'll appreciate this, Seamus, because Harry Rosenberg was actually at this session. It was held in Clayton because somebody won a bet with Harry, and he promised that he would come to the introduction if they did something. And I just happened to be there that night, and it was he and Landmark Forum leader and Bob Campbell, who was the seminar leader. But the Landmark Forum leader was a woman. It wasn't Laura, what's her name? Laurel. It was another woman. And she said one thing to me that night. She said, so imagine creating a future without the encumbrances of the past. And I was a goal setter, and I thought everything is based on the past. So if I can run, run 100 yards, then I want to run 200 yards. Or if I can make $100,000 a year, I want to make $150,000 a year. So it's all built on that. And I thought to myself, this situation that I'm in physically and in my marriage, I can't set goals based upon the past. I've got a new realm of thinking about this. And I was lucky that I did the Landmark Forum. And during the early stages of it, I was lucky to have a man by the name of Jim Abrams, who was he was involved with St. Louis. And then I had Kathy Sotee and Ann Campbell and Bob Campbell. And Jim said to me one thing that landed early on. He said, learn the language. So Landmark has a unique language, and it will help you understand the thinking of it. And it was during that time that I realized that the context of my life could be having a condition, but having a great life with my condition. Now that's hard for someone to understand, but when you said the context was decisive, it was absolutely true for me, because I've had many people ask me, wow, how do you do it? And I'll tell them, because who I am today is a person that I'm proud to be. And it was really my disease and my wheelchair and my inability to stand and do the things that I used to do that helped make me who I am, that has given me the privilege of writing a memoir about my life and sharing with people what it's like to overcome things and even have things be difficult, but have the context still be positive. I mean, I've given a number of awards, been honored by a number of organizations related to diversity and equity. And St. Louis Business Journal, they've got given me awards. MS Society, Man of the Year, the Paraquat in St. Louis Shine the Light Award, the St. Andrews Foundation as a ageless St. Louisan, someone who gives back all the time. Well, all of that is because I kept the realization that all that would seem to be bad was not all bad, that it was really helped make me who I am. And I am proud of it. And I don't like the fact that I'm still changing. My body's still changing. I mean, just today, the weather's changing in St. Louis, and I went to stand so that I could do my squats for my exercise, and I couldn't stand today. And I, my physical therapist and my assistant come over and stretch me out, and that helped. But I know tomorrow will be a different day, and that's kind of how it goes.
Well, yeah, just to explore this a little bit further, you went from being this shouldn't be this way to accepting it to then inventing uh, an entirely different future. And I'm wondering, what was the moment where you suddenly had a future you could see yourself in?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of resistance along the way. And even when I thought I had it, I didn't necessarily have it. And the whole conversation of inauthenticity is was there and is still there in the background of everything. And it's easy to talk today and tell you I've got it controlled. I do not have it controlled. And my conversation still yells in quite a loud way. And I don't necessarily like it, but that's kind of how it is. So inside the question of when did I really feel like um,
You had a
I
future that you
had,
could see yourself in.
well, it was in bits and pieces. I was lucky enough to do the Introduction Leaders program. And during that program, I decided that I wanted to marry a woman who had done the Introduction Leaders program because the distinctions were so powerful that I wanted to have that fully alive and well in my life, and having a partner that would share those same values with me. And because well, and I will say that all the time leading up to this, I would have moments in and moments out where, because I was still pretty afraid of what the devastating effects of my condition would be. But when, and each woman that I dated and each event that I took on, it was like even I was asked to go down and run the general construction part of a $77 million expansion for Anheuser-Busch in Houston, Texas, which would require me to move down there. And so we set it up. I got a golf cart to move around the 300-acre site. And they set me up because I was the guy that ran everything on the site. And I was trying to help. So I got braces on my legs that would help me stand better. And, but the problem with braces on my legs was that my legs would swell inside the braces. And by mid-afternoon, I would have to take them off because they were so painful. And then I just found out that it wasn't worth the pain. Um, so all of this is kind of like still in and out. And it was um, when Mary and I were married in 95, I think it was 90, yeah, 90, excuse me, we were married in 99. We had decided to take the wisdom curriculum. And during the wisdom curriculum, we went down for a weekend. Ironically, it was in Houston. And I was sitting across from her at dinner at one of my favorite Italian restaurants down there. And I said, Mary, I would like to take on something that is so confronting to me right now that I don't even know where to start with it, but I'd like to take on healing as possibility. And she said, well, what's that going to look like? I said, I do not know what, except I'm going to share it with everybody. And I went back to seminar and I said that I taking on healing as possibility. And I have no idea what that's going to look like. Well, several people came up with ideas, raw diet, um, supplements, those types of things. And I did them. And I was having back in St. Louis after Mass, we went to lunch with my good friend Dick Arnoldy and his wife Nancy. And Dick calls me Hools. He said, Hools, said, if I was taking on healing as possibility, I would go to Lourdes, which is, for those that don't know, is a healing spot in France where apparently the Blessed Virgin appeared to a young 13, 14-year-old girl by the name of Bernadette. And it's a place of recognized healing with evidence. And I think there's like 47 healings or whatever that are legitimately recognized by the scientific community.
For just people listening, it's a Catholic.
It's Catholic, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you go there and there's way more than Catholics there. It is a world, it's quite an experience. And so Mary and I decided to go, and we were setting it for the end of October, and then the World Trade Centers get hit, and the world is turned upside down for travelers. And I called Dick and Nancy, and Nancy said, Michael, I feel so bad, but we can't go with you. I've got children, and if anything ever happened, I just couldn't live with myself. It's absolutely fine. Mary and I are going. And we went, and it was, I mean, traveling then was way secure. I mean, we went through, I said this in my book, but when we went through security, when that guy patted me down, he could tell if I had boxers or briefs on. I mean, he knew what was going on. And I was not going to be a smart ass because he'd be jerking me aside very quickly, whether I was in a wheelchair or not. And so we get up to our seats, and I'm in the front row, and it's not comfortable, and I wanted to move, but I thought I could deal with the inconvenience of it for 6 hours, and I did. But when we got to Lourdes, the idea was to go in the baths. Just for those that don't know, it's spring water. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't think it was going to be that cold. And so I went in, I'm changing, and there was an Italian on my left and a Frenchman on my right. And I'm wanting to get out and just get it over with, that type of attitude, which is not very prayerful. And I remember the Italian saying, whoa, 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 we must pray, we must pray. And I'm thinking to myself, let's get this over with. And so they then helped me lower into the water, and it was like a plunge. And I just pulled out so fast. And after the baths, um, I, Mary had to go to the bathroom. She had been waiting for me. And I went over to this bridge, and I bowed my head and I said, Lord, if this is how you want me to live my life, I'm okay with it. But I really would like some sign that I can understand. And when I looked up into the Pyrenees Mountains, there was a rainbow, like immediately. It came out from the ladies' room. And I said, Mary, I just asked for a sign that this is how God wants me to live my life. And I saw the rainbow. And she said, wow, that's great. We went to have our photograph taken with the rainbow behind us, and it was gone. So then that night we went on the procession of healing. The procession of healing is quite amazing because there's people on oxygen and in hospital beds and wheelchairs, and they get to this underground church that holds, I want to say, like 16,000 people. It's the biggest structure I've ever seen under the ground. And my mom taught me this Catholic thing that every new church you go in, you say 6 Hail Marys, 6 Our Fathers, and 6 Glory Bees, and you get 3 wishes. So, I'm doing it the way I was trained. And without the moment I asked to be healed, I heard a voice without question, you are already healed. Well, that was great, but now what do I do with that? And then it just kept growing from there that I'm healed. This is my mission. My mission is to live powerfully exactly the way I am and
Mm,
exactly the way I'm not. And
mm.
it kind of was perfect for me.
Mike, having had that experience, having lived, in the 25 years since, um, what are the gifts that this condition has given you in your life?
That's really pretty good. They're not, all of the gifts were not the gifts that I wanted, but they're better. So what I wanted, I tell people, I'm, I'm so simple. All I wanted was a lot of money and have all the things like country club memberships and play golf and, hang out and eat good meals and travel wherever I wanted, that type of thing. And the gifts have been that I got none of that in that way. I I've been lucky enough to be acknowledged for how I have been about my condition. I was accepted into Leadership St. Louis class of 2001, 2002 in St. Louis. And part of the reason that I think that I was accepted was the fact that I was the only one in a wheelchair and that I had a different view on the world because of that. And when we talked about the weekend about diversity and the lack thereof, I was particularly touched by it because I don't see myself as being um, different, and yet I am. People, look at me. Some people can be really comfortable with me, and other people don't know what to do about me I am because I'm in a wheelchair and I do need assistance. Um, and because of that, um, the people that know me, um, it has deepened my relationship. I was at the early stages of my condition, and I think, Seamus, one of the things you're asking is some of the gifts that have come from it. Am I right?
Yes.
So I was doing some consulting work with a company down in Tampa, Florida, and or RW Murray Company, and the one of the owners of the company and I were riding back St. Louis on a plane, and his name is Dick, and I said, Dick, it's been hard for me to share this, but I have to tell you, I've got this life-threatening condition that I'm not clear about all the details of it, but I'm afraid it's going to cause me to lose my customers and lose my friends. And without a moment's hesitation, he said, first of all, you're not going to lose us as a client. That's not going to change. And the second thing is, and by the way, if you do lose somebody for that reason, you didn't want them anyway. And he said the same thing with your friends. If you lose a friend because of your condition, that person really wasn't a friend. And so that that gave me so much confidence that I could really, I didn't have to worry, but because I didn't have to worry about doing anything to change it because changing it wouldn't have given me anything. So I found that it has deepened my relationships with those that are still with me. And I've been an example of no matter what, I can do it, even though I'm struggling physically. I think you have maybe asked me earlier about my creating of St. Louis Civic Pride Foundation. So this is a combination of when I was accepted into Leadership St. Louis, 2001, 2002, we were exposed to many of the foundational issues related to our city. And afterwards, I felt like I needed to do something to pay them back for this tremendous gift I was given to know the insights of the problems and the benefits of living in St. Louis as a community. And I was journaling one morning, and I realized that I don't know what it's like to experience prejudice the way Black and poor people do. I don't know what it's like to solve transportation problems. I don't know what it's like um, to impact schools and make a change there. But I do know that people in St. Louis are good people, but they don't often speak about our community in the true gift that it is as a community. And so out of that, I decided that I would use it as a self-expression and leadership project and use all the distinctions that I learned when I did that program. And so I started interviewing people it was a couple years. I interviewed the leaders from the Rams and for the Cardinals, for the Blues. And the Blues were really great. You're going to like this one. I wanted them to honor everyone from outside our city, that like have them stand and be welcomed by our fans. And the president,
That's a difficult thing to get a hockey
the
team
hockey
to agree
Blues,
to.
yeah, he said, we can do that with everybody except for the Blackhawks. So I thought you could appreciate that. But what happened was later on, the head of marketing for the Cardinals used to do. They would come and make signs of where they were from during a Saturday game, and they held up their signs. And during the break in the fifth inning, they would pick whoever it was that came from the furthest away, and they would get more tickets to future games. And that just came out of an idea. And then I was thinking, and the feedback that I got was just that, that we were already a nice community. But that wasn't quite it. And I was talking to a fellow that was working with the convention center in creating their new brand. And he asked me to meet Kitty Ratcliffe, who was president of the convention center in St. Louis. And I told her about my idea. Would it be like if St. Louis was known as the most courteous and respectful city in the country? And after about a year of meetings and collaboration, we then formed a not-for-profit, and we called it St. Louis Civic Pride Foundation. And right now we have a board of about 28 people. It's been going on for about 10 years. And we just do one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we have what we call hospitality heroes. And this year there were 120 hospitality heroes that were nominated by their organizations for being exceptional at what they do. And then we have superheroes, and those superheroes do everything from saving someone's life to jumping in the car and taking a passport to the airport because they forgot it at their hotel, or just really examples of great human beings being there for one another. I'm so proud that I was instrumental in creating all that.
That's really extraordinary. Mike, with the time we have left, I have a couple more questions. You talk about every conversation counts. And that people could view that a number of different ways. But there are a lot of frivolous conversations that take place. In the Midwest, we talk about the weather. We have like the nice pleasantry things. How you doing? Fine, et cetera, et cetera. For you, how would you articulate this view that every conversation counts?
Well, first of all, when I stand in that I am responsible for my words and that I don't know how it will be interpreted as long as I'm standing somewhere with my own conviction about it. That I often will say things that people will hear something different than what I said, but they would say, what you said really inspired me. And I didn't even intend that, but I was grateful that that was how it was received. So I think it's important that we are thoughtful about what we say. And we are, at least it's my mission, is to speak in a way that um, I'm listening through, I'm listening for what I'm saying to someone and paying attention to that.
Mm.
I don't
Well, it's really easy to discount, um, that we matter, but probably the one of the main ways that we matter are in our conversations with others.
Yeah, when that's everything lives in conversation. I remember um, when I was leading the Introduction Leaders program, there was a weekend leader by the name of Cookie Boudreau, and she used to always say, everything gets worked out in conversation, not in monologue. So we have to have dialogue in order to work things out. Because if we really spend all our time in our heads, we're just going to get more of the same answers. But if we're really open to make a difference, then we need to be in dialogue.
Um, another thing I want to ask you is it's kind of audacious to write a memoir. Who am I to tell my story? Who am I to commit my story to words and print and
Oh boy.
put a book out? What gives you that audacity?
Oh man. I've asked myself that question so many times. And I was nervous and still nervous about what people will think of it because I just thought, how many people get to live my life? And it really hasn't been until now that I look back that I appreciated it. When I was every step of the way, I always thought I was doing something wrong. I wasn't making enough money. I wasn't doing it right. And when it, it started with a friend by the name of Melody Klug, who was a master's in fine arts and writing, and she had a, a Friday book writing group, and during that writing group, she said, why don't you just write stories about your life? And all I did was just start writing stories about that I had, and all of a sudden, it was looking kind of interesting, and and then I'm standing in that I make a difference and that we all make a difference. And unless we share that, no, there would be no opportunity to inspire someone to get off it, someone to take an extra step that they wouldn't take, to read something that they wouldn't normally read or listen differently. And that's been the inspiration behind me writing it. It's not there in the end of the book. I even say the secret is there's no secret.
There's one question that we like to ask to wrap up the interviews, and it's against the backdrop of 100 years from now, nobody who's in this conversation, nobody who's listening to this in real time is going to be around. And that there'll come a time for all of us. We won't be here anymore. What do you want people to say about you when you're no longer here?
He lived true to himself.
Well, I'm very grateful for you living true to yourself, Mike. It's really it's just been a real privilege to have this conversation with you, and thank you for your audacity and your integrity and your commitment to make a difference in the way that you live and the way that you speak. It's just really a gift.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Landmark Difference Makers. If you're inspired by what you heard and you want to learn more about Landmark's programs or explore upcoming episodes, visit landmarkforumnews.com to find resources, event details, and more stories of people making extraordinary impact around the globe. If you are already a part of the Landmark community, check out the Landmark subscription, designed to provide ongoing support in creating a life you love. Visit landmarkworldwide.com to learn more. Until next time, keep creating